Call this meeting to order for Friday, June 27th. Remaining one, this meeting. Guess we'll wait.
That was my.
Well, we can do the resolution.
I think she did that on purpose.
Oh, so we do have a resolution here. And what this is that we have to
Wish it was not smart.
reappropriate money from one department to the ambulance department. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas it is desired to appropriate additional budget to Department 36 ambulance and Service Area 1000 Public Safety and Legal Services, and whereas Service Area 1000 within the Department 05 Sheriff has budget remaining, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Jefferson County that a reappropriation from Service Area 1000 in the amount of $16,097 from the sheriff's budget to the ambulance budget be made. I would make a motion to approve that reappropriation.
I would second that motion.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So while she's out, well, she's back.
Thank you guys. I applauded our intelligence. Wait a minute, that was for you? Yeah. I appreciate it.
Hey,
I'll try to do better next
by
week.
any chance, were you able to talk to Pat?
Not yet, no.
Okay. That mower that I was telling you about, is down by the fairgrounds on the south side of the road.
Okay,
There's a phone number attached to it.
okay.
I don't know any more about it than that.
All right, I'll reach out. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You guys ready to talk about this
Yeah,
issue? Okay. So, as you know, we were gonna be talking about the subdivision ordinance. Previously, we had discussed how to limit number of dwellings per lot, for sanitation concerns primarily. But now there is, a new law that is going into effect that requires counties to allow one accessory dwelling unit. Per that, along with one primary single-family residence on a lot. So what I propose is that we adopt our own ADU ordinance that complies with the new law of the state. And that way we can, if we want, we can limit the number of ADUs to a maximum of one. And ADU has a very specific definition in the code, so we would just adopt that. I guess the question is whether or not we would also have to amend our subdivision ordinance, sanitation ordinance, but I don't think so, because as it stands now for our sanitation, you have to get a permit to alter, install, construct, or extend, right, any
Correct.
sewer system. So I imagine that maybe in our ADU ordinance, we can just address that and make sure that people get that permit if necessary. And then I don't believe that we would have to change our subdivision ordinance, but Dwayne, if you want to weigh in on that, so
We really don't have anything, those are stuff found that,
would prohibit,
that limit anything.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
that,
yeah, that's
that's one of
the
the
issue.
things that in
I-
there, in, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead,
But
sorry.
in revising the ordinance or amending the ordinance, we should have teeth in some of that. There should be some way to monitor the number of accessory units.
Well, and so if we have an ADU ordinance, I would imagine we would need to get some kind of permitting system in place. I don't know who, I guess I'm looking at you here, if you would be approving those permits, or, you know, how we would like to go about that. That is one question for the permitting process. And then also, I sent an email to Brett yesterday regarding like EMS access and how, because the code, the state law that also doesn't address how we would, you know, if we would need an address or some kind of numerical designation for the ADU to allow for EMS response. So that's another thing that I think we would have to sort out.
Well, it certainly would make sense that it would be separately addressed. I don't know what the requirements are specifically, but my understanding wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, at least in part, there was a medical necessity attached to it. Or that accessory home, or whatever you call it.
No,
Okay.
there isn't, and in fact, people can even rent them out. So it's definitely, there is no.
But that changes the tax classification.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. Because if you have a property and you're renting it out, that's considered a building on leased land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so the state laws that exist still apply to that, but
But
I was
what's the
just,
purpose behind the state law?
the ADU.
Yeah,
Well, this was, I think, an effort by the AARP. And I think the primary purpose was to allow for like mother-in-law units or, you know, something of that nature for primarily elderly, I'm guessing. Just because the AARP was advocating for it is my assumption, but
well, it
That
would
is
certainly
great.
change the size of the septic system that you would install if you're gonna have 2 units on one system, if you base it on the number of bedrooms.
Well,
Because if you
that,
have a 4-bedroom house and then you bring grandmother in, put her in a 1-bedroom house, that's fine. Does that change things?
oh, well, of course it would, Lee, because, again, that 4-bedroom house is designed for a 4-bedroom house.
Right.
In the situation where we're at, building sand filters in the county, we're not able to add on to that sand filter. So it would have to be a complete new system.
And there would have to be enough land to be able to accommodate 2 systems.
Yeah, that would be another issue. I mean, again, we could go to the alternative sources that they'll treat it, but generally we like to see them sand filters in, but that would be a little bit of a problem too, if it just sat on 1 acre. You know, if you could put a 4-bedroom house on 1 acre, driveway, garage, septic system, that takes up quite a bit of that acre.
so that would be part of your permitting process, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, if they got this 4-bedroom house and they're bringing grandma and grandpa and placing a tiny home beside it, they would have to go ahead and apply for another permit, and then it would get sized appropriately. Now, I just wanted to throw this out here is that, again, each size of bedroom calls for a certain size of sand filter, right? But when we let people hook up these nice big shops, the code kind of requires that we take that and make that as a 2-bedroom house. No matter if they're saying, oh, it's just a shop. Oh, it's just going to be my place to go on the weekends. Doesn't matter. We have a minimum size. So I don't know if that's important. To be detailed about it, that we're not putting in a 12 by 15 filter. We're going to put in the full 2-bedroom size. So we don't know if that tiny home's going to have 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom. Might look like it only has 1 bedroom, but
Question. If I decided to build a new house, it's gonna be a 2-bedroom. Can I go on ahead and if in the future I'm gonna put in another dwelling, another small unit, can I go on ahead and build the 3-bedroom now and be noted that in the future you can hook into it?
yeah, as long as the size of square footage meets whatever you're adding to it. Yeah,
Okay,
I guess I wouldn't want to see him build a 6-bedroom filter and only hooking 2 bedrooms to it, Joe, but
yeah.
bigger
I mean,
doesn't
just
hurt you.
If one,
Yeah. Yeah, again, that most people wouldn't tell you that, but yeah, that would be the proper channel. Say, yeah, I'm gonna think about adding another little smaller house out here.
well, I don't have to be concerned about a mother. So
Aren't you lucky?
Give her your son.
maybe you would.
Oh, yeah, that's. It might be a great advantage for elderly person that doesn't want to leave their house, but they don't want nobody living with them. you know,
Yeah,
that they've set one and
So I guess, so that's what I'm proposing. Instead of amending our subdivision ordinance, we just create a new accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And we will, have to have some kind of permitting process for the building. I guess I assume that the county engineer would handle that.
Sure.
And then, of course, we would
Yeah,
reference
well,
the
that's fair, Tom. Thank
permitting
you.
for, under our sanitation ordinance. And, then we would have to sort out maybe EMS. I don't know, would that be part of the permitting process on your end, or how does that work?
Well, that, for the 911 addressing, that would be actually the guy on the other side of it. He's kind of handling that, but would you, okay, so I guess I'm envisioning you come in somebody's driveway, main house is on, you're out in the country, 3 acre lot, whatever. Main house is on the left, then the accessory unit would either be behind or off the other side, so you'd have one driveway, so you'd either have 2 911 tags there, or it'd be, 931 unit A, 931 unit B, or something
Right.
to that effect. And then they'd have to have a big A or a big B on their building, so you know which one it is, or a sign out front.
The property that I know right north of Lockridge has 2 signs right there to the driveway.
And then, it just, you would want it to be such that EMS doesn't have to think much when they pull in the driveway, that they know where the unit is, and I don't. Where'd he scoot to? The guy that asked that just left the room,
Right,
but, I would think you'd want to have it apparent, because you don't, if it's an emergency, you don't want somebody knocking on doors to try and figure out which unit.
about half the time there would be somebody out there anticipating an
You would hope,
emergency coming in.
Yeah.
Direct.
unless you're by yourself and you're.
Yeah, if you're by yourself, that's 50% of the time.
And that's something I noticed in there is that if you bring in a mobile home, a tiny home that has to be on a concrete foundation.
yeah, you have to turn it into real property.
Yeah.
So,
That's a nice. Yeah,
So I got a question, and I don't know that we can answer this. And this was something that I wanted to discuss today in the subdivision ordinance. So and it's not necessarily unique to Jefferson County, but I'm going to use, there is a situation in Henry County, and it's long since been resolved, but we had a property owner who owned a significant amount of ground. Exactly how many acres, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And evidently it was a nice location, and so people were building cabins on this ground. And they'd go out there and they'd spend their weekend or whatever. But there were no septic systems, there was no waste disposal. And so the issue came to the forefront, and the arm wrestling contest was, is the owner of the parcel responsible, or is the owner of the cabin responsible?
or what?
The waste disposal system. And so in that context, sanitarian doesn't care, other than it has to have one. The arm wrestling contest between the owner of the property and the owner of the cabin, somebody's going to comply, so who pays for it? So we'll get into a situation, and essentially, the thought process is that the owner of the residence is responsible for the waste disposal system. But in the case of the mini homes, and not an accessory, but because it would be on a foundation per se, which you can pour a concrete foundation and then pull the wheels over, set it on there. And I'm not sure that's what they intend here, but that's what you could do, either here or there. So on a mini home, because one of the questions I ask now is, okay, who's responsible for time of transfer? So you have a mini home and you decide to, I don't know, move to Montana, so you sell it to Joe. Is there time of transfer responsibility there? If it turns out that that system isn't functioning properly, who's responsible for repairing that system? The landowner or the person that has the mini home? Or conversely, let's say that she takes her mini home and pulls it to Montana. So there's nothing there. And several months later, Joe has, oh, there's a spot so I pull my mini home in. But can he hook up to that system? Who's responsible for it if it needs to be updated? Is it the landowner or is it the person that's pulling in the mini home? I mean, this is, shall we say, fraught with all kinds of possibilities that I don't know the answer to. But you're gonna have, and I know you're gonna have people who pull the mini homes in, pull the mini homes out. Okay, so that question's gonna have to be answered.
The landowner is responsible. If there's a piece of property that's being sold, then.
But that's not what's happening here. These are going to be buildings on leased land. In other words, you
They're
have
gonna be real property. They
that
have to
only,
become real property.
only the accessory. I'm talking about, for example, what we've got going here right now. Where we have, for example, the 12-acre parcel where they potentially want to put mini homes, multiple mini homes. That's one of the reasons we're looking at this and that we changed this. But even if you pull in a mini home on a parcel, it's still a building on leased land. You still own the land, you own the mini home. It's not a permanent structure in any way, shape, or form. It's not like Joe's house, if Joe decides to sell his house, which is on a foundation and is a permanent structure, to Susie, that time of transfer is required. But if Joe pulls out his mini home, there's nothing there.
No.
And 3 months later, Susie pulls in a mini home, who's responsible for that waste disposal.
So time of transfer would indicate that there's a sale.
Right,
So if there's a sale, then there's a split. And if there's a split, then it maybe would trigger a subdivision ordinance. If it doesn't, we don't have zoning, there's nothing we can do about it
well, but what I'm
unless there's
saying,
a
what I'm,
specific
but.
sanitation
Not-
issue.
We're confusing the issue. The issue is that there's no sale. This is a building on leased land. This is a building
Then
on
it's not a
wheels.
time
There's
of
a sale.
transfer.
It goes, a lot of times the BLLs go through the treasurer's office.
But
the title.
I get it, but I'm not saying it right. You could pull that out of there.
Mhm.
She can take it with her and go somewhere else.
Mhm.
There's no
Yeah,
sale
I'm thinking
there.
about that.
That's more of almost like a camper spot.
Yeah, like a
Yeah,
campground.
Exactly my
Okay.
point.
It
Alright,
should be the
so the-
landowner's responsibility if he's
It
gonna
is.
lease that.
We don't have zoning. That's what zoning would achieve.
Yeah, so they-
if, like we can't regulate what people do with their land unless we have zoning
Okay.
and we're
But there are
doing it in
BLLs and
piecemeal.
they have their own parcel numbers. And when that person no longer, whether the mobile home or camper is taken out of that spot, there's a title that comes through the treasurer's office and then the assessor's office, and then we change the name.
So it is a subdivision.
Well,
They have their own parcel numbers.
So then there has to be a subdivision, right?
not necessarily because the land's not sold. It's a building on leased land. They're paying
Yeah, so-
rent.
but that's not the ADU, the accessory.
Right,
The
right,
accessory dwelling unit, you actually have to take the wheels off and attach it to the foundation.
right. And but I'm just talking about
Yeah.
mini homes.
But yeah, many homes are a different kettle of fish then, aren't they? Or-
I don't
or-
really know that there's a way that we can. I mean, we can't do anything about mini homes. We can address the sanitation issue,
That's what I'm asking.
We
Who's
can-
responsible for that?
the landowner.
I'll go along with that, and I suppose we can write that into our ordinance, but I'm not sure the Iowa code will support that. I really am not.
Explain your definition of a mini home. Are we all on the same page?
Well, you could go, for example, to Sears Home Store and buy one of those sheds and move it out
Yes.
there, and that's a mini home,
Okay,
okay? And if you have water and stuff running to it and plumbing coming out of it, then you're subject to waste disposal systems.
that's
In
correct.
fact, the Iowa code states that if you congregate, it doesn't make any other stipulations. If you congregate, you're required to have a waste disposal system. And having an outhouse sitting on the outside doesn't get it done. But my point is that a lot of these mini homes that come in, like what we had out on Mint Boulevard, for example, and some of what we have on Kale or Kelp or whatever over there, are on wheels, as you indicated, and they can be pulled in and out. In fact, the ones that were on Mint Boulevard are gone because they were pulled out. All I'm asking is that those waste disposal systems were installed. There was waste disposal. I think they have 4 units on one system out there.
Yeah.
Which brings another point, if we don't limit the number of mini homes on a parcel, now you got 4 people that are tied to that, and who's responsible when one decides to sell? Are they all? I don't know how that works. And then we end up getting into these weeds and these lawsuits and all this other stuff as to who's responsible, and we're not getting. And the Iowa Code really doesn't speak to the landowner being responsible. It's the user. All I'm saying is, I think that's one of the reasons that you limit. Obviously, like Elizabeth said, we have to follow code here, and I get that. But you limit one of anything, and would you call it an ADU? To a parcel. And I think we also increase the size of the parcel to a minimum of 2 acres. Rather than 1. And then the number of bedrooms and all that happy stuff would apply. And at some point, if it's more than 1,500 gallons a day or something, it becomes the DNR's issue.
Yeah, it's like individuals, 16 individuals. But here might be a quick solution is, when we think about systems, we think about the tank, we think about the filter. We could just go back and say, let's think about it as a campground. Let's think about that any dwelling that has gray water coming out of it puts in a 2,000 gallon tank with an alarm system on it, and they're required to follow the holding tank part of the Iowa code where they have to pump that tank once a year.
Well, our subdivision ordinance already speaks to it in subdivisions. And it states that if they're within 1 mile of a public sewer, they're required to tie on, unless the owner of the public sewer, which I say, for example, maybe Fairfield or Bating City or whomever denies it, then it says adequate provisions for disposal of sanitary sewage and the platted area shall be provided. So we're saying that it shall be provided by the person who's doing this subdividing. It's the way I read that.
Yes, that's if
Yeah,
it's a subdivision.
If it's a subdivision, but if
Right.
you've got a 40 acre or 20 acre parcel,
Exactly.
And you
You're-
just have,
you're-
you
you got the
can't
Wild
do
West.
anything about it, and if.
But I can
unless
restrict the
there's-
number of units that's on that parcel.
Based on the sanitation system.
In other words, what I'm saying is that if you can, if we write a subdivision ordinance that says only 1 residential dwelling per parcel. I don't give a flying rat's behind how large the parcel is. And then the ADU thing that we have to comply with that. And that if you subdivide, the minimum parcel size is 2 acres. Increasing it from 1 to 2 acres. If you don't subdivide, so now in this case, if they're going where I think they're going, there's a lot of other hoops that an individual has to jump through before they can even do that, because they've never completed all of the requirements of the major subdivision. There's no lighting, there's all of these things that are required. It's storm sewer system, all of this is required in the, this says the developer shall install and construct a storm water drainage and or storm sewer system adequate to serve the area. There's no wiggle room there, it says shall.
or yeah, but the ditches can be stormwater drainage,
Well,
as long as you have slope to make the ditches.
right. You'd have to drive through Cypress Village to see if that's indeed the case. But I can tell you that he never completed phase 2 of the major subdivision, and that's a story for another time.
That's,
All I'm wanting to do, if we can do it, is just simply restrict the number of residential dwellings on a parcel,
That's what we'll do with our ADU ordinance.
okay? And then we have to define what's a residential dwelling. So for example, if Elizabeth wanted to build an 8-bedroom apartment complex, then I think we would have to define that as, would have to be what's the word I'm looking for?
A single family?
Well,
Or just
I
one
mean, it could be 8 one-bedroom apartments and then sanitary has to deal, but I'm talking about it can't be 8 separate units. They have to be physically attached, constructed in a.
Are you talking about the ADU or are you talking
I'm just
about a
talking about
single
resi-
family residence?
Single family dwellings, right?
Okay. Okay,
Because if you build an apartment, they're single family, but it's still one residential dwelling on a parcel.
well.
Can we, I mean, can we honestly, can we write an ordinance that says you can't build an apartment building?
We can,
I'm sorry.
We went from ADU to subdivision.
you know,
Keep up, come
I
on.
understand, I do understand, I guess I'm just kind of uncomfortable with the whole tenor of this conversation.
Well, it's, to me, it's really simple.
So I understand that it's simple, but we don't have zoning. There's only so much that we can do without it. So what we can do is we can adjust if somebody subdivides their property, we can increase the lot size, if you'd like, to 2 acres. We can limit the number of ADUs. We can define what ADU is, and we can limit the number of ADUs that people can put on that property. The sanitary sewer system permitting process would still be required unless they are tapping into the
Right.
public sewer system. So, you know, I
But what
think
you're
that-
telling me is that he can put 15 mini homes on a 12-acre parcel.
No, because we're gonna say, we're gonna limit the number, and so I don't know, we're not gonna be defining mini home, but we are gonna be
Right.
defining accessory dwelling unit. And we're gonna limit the number that can be put on one parcel along with a single family residence.
And
And if we like, we can define what a single family residence is, but we don't have an ordinance that. I don't think we have an ordinance that limits what type of building people can put on their, like what.
No, I'm not,
We're
I'm
gonna
not trying to limit the
number.
type of building.
Well, you
I-
were talking
I'm-
about
Well, I just
apartment.
didn't, that was exactly my point. I didn't want to limit it to a single family residence per se, if somebody was putting up an apartment building on a parcel.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
Elizabeth,
saying.
I would like to have you finish what you were saying.
Oh, I don't remember. what I was saying,
Sorry.
Susie. No, it's okay. I understand this is passionate subject.
So mini home is an ADU.
I think that
Would be-
there's a way that we could define what an ADU
So you
is.
couldn't put more than one ADU
Right
on a
now, in the
parcel.
code, an accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 1,000 square feet. Or 50% of the size of that single family residence, whichever is larger. So I think what we do is we just define what a single family residence is, which in my mind is not an apartment complex, it's a single family residence. And then we can define ADU that complies with state code.
So would we then have? So Jerry owned a 30-acre parcel. Jerry doesn't split the parcel. He just owns 30 acres and he said, hey, Joe, my son, you go ahead and build a house there. Hey, Jill, my daughter, you go ahead and build a house there. So now we have 3 single-family dwellings on one parcel. It's never been subdivided. There's no requirement to subdivide it. That's what I'm asking. You take a 12-acre parcel that's not subdivided, and you're gonna put 15 mini homes on it, that's a problem. We had that out at Mint Boulevard. And so maybe we can't speak to that in the subdivision ordinance, and I don't know whether you can or not, because it is a subdivision ordinance. But if you're not dividing the land, but you own 40 acres and you want your kids to live on the 40 acres, is that okay? And if that is okay, that you have 3 or 4 children living on there and they build houses, is that considered? You're not subdividing because you got 40 acres, you can, you know.
But he's not gonna allow it if they need to put a septic system in. He's
Sure.
gonna be like, there's 3 properties here or 3 houses
He
here. You
doesn't
need
care,
3
as long as
systems.
they all have the proper waste disposal unit for the size or the number of bedrooms. Has nothing to do with how many homes are on a parcel. He doesn't care whether the parcel's subdivided, and the code doesn't speak to that. Chapter 69 doesn't care either.
But this does, this code speaks to it, the ADU. That's what I'm proposing we adopt.
But doesn't it? Yeah, because see, it says a county shall allow a minimum of one accessory dwelling unit on the same lot. But if there's no lots defined, if it's not subdivided, then there's no lots.
It is one lot, isn't it?
It's
If
a
it's-
parcel.
It's a
It's a
parcel.
parcel.
Is it same as a lot by the?
I don't believe so.
Well, can we put lot or parcel maybe?
A parcel is a tract of land and a lot is a tract of land represented and identified by a number or letter designation on
So
an
parcel
official
number?
plan.
So could it be a parcel number then? I
Yeah.
mean, if there's
Yeah,
one
so-
parcel with a parcel number and there are no other designated numbers of
So
lots.
if you limit one dwelling structure per parcel, then if they have a 40-acre parcel and want to have more than one
They have to
house,
They have to
dwelling,
subdivide
they
it.
would have to subdivide or at least split it.
Right.
Because you could let them split it
3 times.
3 times. So that there would be 3 parcels out of the one.
And I really don't want to be so terribly restrictive with people. But at the same time, we've been taken advantage of.
If you don't, you're gonna have little RV lots, basically. And Jerry's gonna be like the dog chasing his
I think
tail.
in tent city buckets.
So if we have one dwelling unit per lot or parcel. And that way, if somebody has a parcel and they have to split it into
Yeah, if
lots.
they wanna have,
And then that would trigger a subdivision ordinance.
And maybe this answers the question in a subdivision. A minor subdivision occurs when no more than 4 lots are created.
Mhm.
So you have a parcel, the subdivision actually speaks, it shows it differently. So you have a parcel and it's a minor subdivision if no more than 4 lots are created on that parcel.
but then the lots each become an individual parcel.
Right. And you can't be, so if you took that 40 acres and you split it into 4 parcels or 4 lots, you couldn't split one of those 10 acres again without it
You
being a
could,
major
but it'd have
subdivision.
to be a subdivision. Yeah.
Right.
So does that address the concern then?
Well, I think it does for me. I think that they should be a minimum of 2 acres.
So you do want to still change the subdivision ordinance?
Yeah. And I think that I personally think that we need to restrict. And then I guess we can define what's a residential dwelling.
Yes, in the subdivision ordinance, we have language that, you can do a split and sell it to the adjoining landowner.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, so
Yeah.
we can do that and I'll sign off on those all day long, but then this parcel may not be sold or developed by a third party without reconsideration. Where is the trigger that flags that needs to be reconsidered as a subdivision or a minor subdivision? We don't have anything to tell the auditor or the recorder that, hey, this guy really can't sell this. Unless, is there, okay, something I've talked with about,
Kale.
well, no, it comes up quite frequently and if we do a adjoining property split where the adjoining person, is there a way that we can make that the 2 that are going to be joined one parcel instead of having 2? What's,
Essentially,
because to me that,
Survey and then, you know,
it would
Yeah,
be,
because,
if
you know,
people
just-
buy two lots and they want them combined, all they have to do is go to the assessor and say, I'd like to combine these, so I'm not getting two tax, letter or tax bills, I'm only getting one.
okay, I guess I was assuming, I thought you were talking about if somebody wants to give some of their property to an abutting
yeah,
landowner,
yeah.
but it's not an entire lot,
Yeah.
it's just like a
Yeah,
portion
yeah,
of
you
it,
can,
then
you
I
can
thought
do,
it.
yeah,
had
you
to
can
be-
do that with a survey, but we
Okay,
had the deal over, I don't remember which one it was, but we're selling it, or they were selling it to an adjoining property owner. And then the guy turned around and wanted to sell it to his son.
Mhm.
And he did all of this before it actually got
Right.
approved, so he got his wrist slapped about it. But had he waited 6 months and done that, we all would have probably forgot about it. And,
There's no way,
but
in
it,
my mind, there's no way to keep track of all of those that are happening, other than
unless
combining it.
making it, okay, so you're selling it to this adjoining property owner. So these two parcels then become one, so that if he wants to sell it off again, it has to be split. It's one more, it's one more step for them, but it's not, to me, it's not a high hurdle, and it should cut down on shenanigans like that
Because they do happen.
a lot, I think.
So what would we amend in our subdivision?
I don't know,
Address
that's,
that.
It would be a conversation to have with the assessor's office. They are
Okay.
the ones that get that ball rolling.
What
We
if,
process it for the official plat, but it's them that takes that initial request.
what if we, anyway, that would work.
the neighbors acquiring a parcel of land in this situation may use that land for any purpose. So there'd be another sentence in there that adding land to a budding property or properties and combining the two parcels, some just a.
And then if they ever wanted to sell it, then they would have to go
They
through
would
the
have to
process.
Or if they wanted to,
So we're saying that they would have to get a survey and then create one
well,
parcel.
they have.
Or they would
well,
have
a lot
to
of
create
times-
one part, if they're getting an entire lot or an entire parcel, they can just add them together and they can create.
So then you would have essentially two legal descriptions that describe one parcel
parcel.
to make it be whole.
Mhm.
That happens.
And a lot of times, what people are doing is they're selling off the ag land to the neighbor and keeping the timber for hunting. So they're getting a survey done already. But sometimes, I think sometimes the issue is the land will cross over section lines, and then I think you're required to have a separate parcel. But when you're in the same section, there shouldn't be any reason you couldn't do.
Well, why wouldn't we want to require them to keep a separate parcel and then we would know?
Well, yeah,
That
but
we
then
would
if they,
know that they had acquired a separate parcel, so that later on we would know that this was actually.
but if
Because
it's a
there's
separate.
no way to keep track of all of those that happen.
If it's a
when-
separate parcel, they can just sell that parcel. Whereas if it's combined, then it's been combined and they can't sell that original parcel to somebody else without going back and re-splitting.
Because the only reason he allowed the split to happen without it being a subdivision is because they were selling to the adjoining landowner. So
Right.
people pull shenanigans, they do, like using your word, they'll hold on to that lot for 6 months or a year and then sell that lot, so they didn't have to go through the subdivision process.
Right, no, yeah, I understand that. I guess I was saying, if you see that it's still its own separate parcel, then you know that it's already been split. So that when they try to sell it again, does that make sense? Or am I not making, maybe I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, well, nobody, once it's its own individual parcel,
Mhm,
it's
I'm not gonna
sellable.
remember that he allowed it to.
got it.
Yeah, short of her going back through the sales record every time somebody says something in front of her. I'm thinking that might be,
That would be a lot.
yeah,
Can we? No, that would be hard to keep track of. I was gonna say if we made it so that they couldn't then turn around and sell it within a certain period of time.
well, we don't want them to sell it at all, is without. reconsideration, because
Okay,
what we're trying to do, I assume without zoning, is kind of limit
well,
rural development to some extent. You know, you want to keep as much ground in ag production as possible. And but still allow the landowners relative freedom on what they do with their own land. You know, so it's a balancing act that the supervisors have to tread. And
Well, and our subdivision ordinance kind of speaks to that. When somebody applies for, and I don't know what the proper word is, but wants to create a subdivision. It says that considers any tract of land with an average corn suitability rating of 55 or higher to be productive agricultural soil. There exists a rebuttable presumption that land with an average CSR value of 55 or higher should be preserved for agricultural use.
I think we need to review that because I don't think they're using the same CSR.
I don't think so either, but
as-
I'm not sure what that is.
They updated it to CSR two
Yeah.
a few years back.
I've asked many times how that's defined and nobody can give me an answer.
By the soil types, isn't it? And
I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
we don't know what, I think 55 used to be a pretty decent piece of land, and now I don't think you can grow grass on 55.
I always consider 55 not the best
Yeah. And that's,
grassland. I mean, grassland. That's set clear back when we're buying.
Right.
yeah, 'cause I think when I've gone through and done easements, I see CSRs in the hundreds. You know, and
That's 100. I've seen 90 to 92, but I've never seen above.
we'll see, that's what, I
That's
think,
what I'm saying.
that's what I'm saying, I think it's changed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're right, but nobody can tell me, maybe NCRS or whatever that is, or.
NRCS, Jason Steele.
Yeah.
So can I visit just a little bit more about the upside on the, or downside about raising the acre that you put it on? So we're talking about extensively about the mini homes coming and going. Let's just say it's just your average Joe owning a mobile home and he decides he's moving it out of the county to live close to his daughter. But the lot is only 3/4 of an acre. So we won't let somebody buy that lot and put another house on that lot because it's not going to be 2 acres.
If it's subdivided,
No, if it's just a lot out there,
it's only gonna be triggered by the subdivision. It has to be subdivided in order for us to, right? To limit the number of acres in
I mean-
per lot.
basically,
so this is just for new
so
subdivision.
does this new code requirement, does it have to be subdivided for the ADU to be?
No,
Okay,
But there
so
should,
then if they're gonna put that up there as an ADU, then it has to be on a foundation.
No, I say they moved the trailer house that's there off of it, but it's sitting on 3/4 of an acre of ground.
Okay,
But we have an ordinance that says that you have to have a minimum of 2 acres
For subdivided.
for
lots.
subdividing it.
Yeah,
All right. And then just my other point is, 2 acres is a lot more ground than you need to put a residential house on. I mean, instead of paying $20,000 for that acre, now you're telling somebody they have to subdivide each lot a
and
minimum
then they
of
come
1.
along and they build a 120 by 60 foot barn, and they build this and they build that. And then all of a sudden, you don't have room for anything else. 2 acres is that's the minimum on, and because otherwise you end up having what we have out here at Cypress Village, where they got a 1/4 acre. And so then everybody's putting in peat moss systems.
All right, okay. But I thought we've had this 1 acre for quite a while in our subdivision, or how did that ever happen that they got a 1/4 acre?
Because we were told at the time when that was developed, that 1 acre was all that was necessary to put in a sand filter system on a 3-bedroom home. That's your answer.
Mhm.
That's how that was arrived at, based on waste disposal units and the need for, and I don't know what it was. For some reason, it sticks in my mind, and it could be completely wrong, that sand filter system needed 720 square feet. I don't know why that number comes to mind, but
Yeah, and for your 3-bedroom house, that's the old fashioned gravity flow system.
and so that's why they're talking about the need to place the septic tank, 720 square foot of sand filter, all of that. You needed an acre of land with a 3-bedroom home. But you start putting other kinds of outbuildings and stuff on there, somebody builds a big shop and maybe they put a bathroom in that shop. I mean, the whole dynamic changes. You know, and I can build a 3-bedroom house and put a 60-foot barn on that 1 acre with no problem, but can I do all of the other things that are required?
Right. But I mean, I guess I'm thinking that you're, again, if we're limiting people that just want 1 acre. You know, if you did want to put all that stuff out there.
So I'm
you'd be like-
limiting people that only want a 1/4 acre. I got a whole slew of them out there at Cypress Village. Where do I stop?
Okay,
I mean, why have the subdivision ordinance if there's not going to be restrictions to it, if you're not going to control it, then there's no point to it.
yeah, I can agree with that, but again, I don't, but I see that as two different things here, that we're talking about mini homes on a small amount of
When we
acres.
designed,
versus
this ordinance, there was no discussion about many homes because they didn't exist.
Right,
And so the minimum of 1 acre, okay? I mean, this is up to the board. This isn't up to me and, you know, this is just my thought process.
well, and I'm just bringing it up again, because the fact, again, a residential person wants to buy 1 acre of ground, that's about all you really need. By extending it out there, you're forcing him to double what he needs that he really doesn't need. And so again, then you're kind of limiting that person to be able to do that financially. I just wanted to throw it out there. I think the 2 acres is a heck of a big chunk of ground if you only put up a 3-bedroom house and you need a 3-bedroom system with a small shop or shed. And now if I'm thinking I'm gonna need a 40 by 100-foot shop, yeah, then I'd need to buy that extra acre beside me to be able to do that.
Well, if you go up to Johnson County, if you're not building right next to the city or a town and incorporated in the town, you need 40 acres to build a house.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's right.
So
Well, when this was designed out there, they used 1/4 acre lots. Is that what you're saying?
In some instances are bigger than that.
Was it with the understanding that they had to put in a public sewer system when they did that?
I don't know because it was before my time and they were quote granted a variance because this subdivision ordinance existed at the time. And a minimum of 1 acre was required, but they granted Mr. Walker a variance on some of those 1/4 acres. Iowa's first lead house is out there on Cypress Village, sits on a 1/4 acre with a Piedmont system. Okay, I don't know what their thought process was when they allowed it. It was illegal. Because I think if you check, you really can't grant a variance. But anyway, the point is that they quote did, and so what exists, if you look at the plat for Cypress Village, it's full of 1/4 acre lots. Not entirely, but there's a whole slew of them. And, you know, we can't go back after the fact and change it, and I'm not suggesting we do. And again, if the board decides that they want to stay with the 1 acre, if they think that that's proper, then that's what the board does.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, again, I'm outside looking at it.
I understand what you're talking about, and a piece of ground is expensive anywhere, including in Jefferson County, and I get that,
Right.
but.
What if we stick with the 1 acre, they build their house according to whatever put in a septic system, whatever required. Then if they decide they want to put up another building, they don't have the room, they can't do it. Because they can't build over the sand filter and stuff.
And then again, like I said before, they just have to buy more ground
You
to
have
put
to
it
buy
on.
another acre.
Yeah, I know. And
So that's my thought on that.
And that's fine.
I mean, if you limit it to 2 acres, that's more cost. But how many small houses do we want out in the county around agriculture? That's a problem right now.
And when you start with 1 acre, you get a lot more than you would if you had 2. All I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can control, I agree, you start building a subdivision. And if you make those lots, for lack of a better way of putting it, 2 acre lots, you limit the number of houses that you can put or whatever units that you can put in that subdivision depending upon it. Because you got a 40 acre parcel, you can put 20 homes on a 40 acre parcel. Actually, you can't put that many because you gotta do, it becomes a major subdivision. You gotta do streets, you gotta do lights, you gotta do sewer, you gotta do roads. They gotta be named, they gotta be numbered, all of these things that are already in
You know, if you allow 1 acre lots, you increase the chance for residential and ag conflict. That's, we go through that. You know, you see that all the time where they're spraying Roundup on their beans. Or corn or whatever, and you have a little drift and the ornamental trees get stressed. So, when I got a buddy I grew up with, his dad used to have a grapevine right next to the
Ooh.
field, and yeah, they
That's bad.
killed him, and he'd been there for 40 years, so he expected that, and we knew it was gonna happen, and the neighbor across the street was complaining. I said, well, Larry, what are we gonna do about it? We're not gonna do anything about this, he's just trying to make a living.
Tori Witherspoon.
Sorry.
We knew what we were building next, or where we were moving when we moved here. That's kind of a risk, but there's a lot of people that don't see it.
And again, 1 acre versus 2 acre lot is not gonna stop that. It's just, we're curtailing residential people who live out in our county. I mean, we all don't wanna live in town. So I mean, I'm just looking at it as an individual saying, does Joe need 2 acres or build himself a nice little retirement house to put it on?
And do I want to have another 600 or 700 acres taken out of farm production for a subdivision or a city? And the answer to that is no, I don't.
Well, I don't,
Again, speaking for me, not the board.
right, yeah, and I don't see that happening here in our county. We're not growing that fast. It's,
We're not growing at all, Cypress Village, but it's all out of ag production. There's no ag production on that land anymore. Just sitting there doing nothing.
right,
That's
it's-
true.
But it's his, he can do what he wants with it. You know?
I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying that that's one of the reasons we put the corn suitability rating in the subdivision ordinance. Because the presumption is that we wanted to save it for agriculture,
Right, yeah.
for production purposes.
Right, yeah, in that particular case, that probably should have never happened out there, because it definitely probably had a suitability.
Preach
rate
to the
of-
choir here on that one, but it wasn't,
Right, right.
there was a lot of things that shouldn't on that one, but Elizabeth has got this, whoops, is this it? No, whatever it was.
ADU.
Yeah, so she's gonna do that.
And then we can amend the subdivision ordinance. So what I heard we were going to be addressing. All right. What we got is we are going to create an ADU ordinance. We're gonna have to figure out maybe if there's an EMS question there. There will be some sort of permitting process. And we're going to obviously reference the permitting process for the sanitation.
What I will tell you all on the 911 number or the situation that Elizabeth is referring to. We've always stated to people that, okay, so, and I go back to Mint Boulevard, and forgive me, but I did the numbers out there in Mint Boulevard, so. I don't know if it was 2385, whatever, and initially we told them that you need to have your unit numbered at least, so unit 1, unit 2, unit 3. So when you called in, I'm at 2385 Mint Boulevard, unit 1. Later on, they came back and said, hey, we want individual 911 numbers. So I did that. So if you go out to Mint Boulevard, you see all these signs out there on the post. But I still told them they had to put those numbers on their building because.
Yeah, otherwise you don't know which one's which.
Yeah. Okay, so, but anyway, the issue is that there was no requirement for them to do anything specific. But in the conversation I had with, well, at one time was with Corinne Love, and then I can't remember who owned it after her, but I did, Stephanie, I think was her name, and I talked to her. And so we'll do whatever it is that they want to do. I think it makes sense. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, we can require that there'd be 911 address.
I believe so. I mean, it's not addressed in the ordinance, I mean, in the state law, and I believe that we should be able to require.
We don't
it
charge
for
for it.
EMS.
Okay, so we don't charge for it. So it's not like we're going to create an extra expense for the homeowner or property owner anyway. You know, and I number anywhere where there's a structure, we can number an empty lot and I've done that. I did it for, Barbara Clarney wanted it for, because Joe was out in several different places way out in the middle of nowhere. She wanted to have those pieces of ground numbered, so I did that. Generally speaking, we'll number any place that has a building without question. Whether, regardless of what the building's use is, whether it's a hog barn or whether it's a house or a shop or whatever. And there is no charge. They just have to let us know that I've got a number for Mr. Bond Trader.
Mhm.
Got him address. I don't have signage, so I'm waiting until the road is done, but anyway, neither here nor there, I'll do whatever, and I think we want to require it. I think that's a good thing.
And while we're looking at the subdivision ordinance, something came up on Greenbrier where that homeowner contacted you about their storm sewer system right there. They dissolved their homeowners association.
They did, yep.
So that shouldn't be allowed. And so they've got this infrastructure built and they've got no way to maintain it. And by the ordinance, they're supposed to have their homeowners association. And I don't know how we can require them to be responsible.
We could penalize them. The
We would-
ordinance allows for it.
I mean, we're penalizing by not fixing because they've got a storm sewer system that doesn't work, but it's a communal storm sewer system, but there's really only maybe a few of the residents that are benefiting, I think, from it because of the way the system runs, but they should all be responsible for it because it's part of the subdivision. So the people that live where there's actual slope, the water can drain out of their yards and it drains into the people's that have the, I don't know the answer on that. But there
Well, I
should be
was gonna say,
something.
let me ask Elizabeth this question. Maintenance of improvements, it says unless otherwise approved by the Board of Supervisors, improvements required to be installed, i.e. the storm sewer system, shall remain on the property and the responsibility of the subdivider or successors in interest to the lands being subdivided. No subdivision shall be approved until and unless legal covenants running with the land sufficient to ensure that the county will not need to assume maintenance responsibility for such improvements. So
So what's the question?
I'm just saying we've already got it in there that we're not responsible.
Well, yeah, we're not responsible, but then right now, nobody's responsible.
Well, but to me, the homeowner, if they don't want it running across their land, has to take steps to fix the problem.
So you're saying it's not a violation of the subdivision ordinance?
Well, I don't know. I think it is, but I don't know. So these folks have a storm sewer system that needs maintenance. They have no funds available to maintain it. And there are a few of the people that are suffering the consequences of this and have no funds for, probably the tens of thousands of dollars required to repair the system.
And they dissolved the
Yeah, so-
homeowners association because it was cheaper.
So
Well, if our subdivision ordinance requires that it be maintained or sanitation, I guess I don't understand who you would penalize, is that what you're saying?
well, I mean, is
Individual
that something that the county is now required to come in and fix that and then assess all the homeowners? Or do we just, or right now, we're just letting them figure it out themselves, which
Mhm.
I'm totally fine with. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if those people bought that knowing that they were buying into that. But again,
Sometimes it's a gun problem.
but I'd kind of like to,
But I agree with you. If the county was to have to go in and do something because of, okay, they will definitely be assessed, so they might as well just get together and figure it out on their own.
Write a letter,
Yeah.
to them and then saying that we would start enforcing a penalty, which we could do,
but I'm more looking forward is there better language to assure that they don't do that in the future?
How many of those
Prohibit the dissolution of
situations
an
do you have?
HOA? I don't know.
How many situations like that, other than Seven Hills and the Greenbrier place, how many of those do we have?
You'd be more familiar with that than whether you had complaints or questions.
No, generally, they're asking me more about road maintenance and opinions on it than,
And that's,
most of them are good. It's just,
I mean, we've got Debbie Nagar out there. I don't know what they do out there. I have no idea. I've never heard anything.
so they have
Some of it has never gotten developed.
Yeah, I mean, there's houses scattered.
yeah, Debbie Nagar has a storm sewer pipe that washed out and demolished one of their roads, but they have alternate access, so nobody, I don't know if they have a homeowner association out there or not.
They used to. I don't know whether they still-
Again, nobody wants to pony up the $100,000 to replace the pipe because it was a big one. It's downstream from you. But they don't have to worry about it because they have other ways to get in.
Yeah, they want to
nobody's
restrict how
doing
you farm, but they don't want to follow the other rules. that
So,
they establish.
I don't know, maybe it's not an issue we need to worry about because that's the only, in 4 years, that's the only instance where somebody's approached me about a private utility.
So
Such
who
a storm
does
sewer.
maintenance on the roads out in Greenbrier?
The roads are county, but the storm sewers are private.
So you're going to push snow and stuff.
And that subdivision was approved predicated upon the legal covenants that were in place, which in this case, they had the homeowners association, so on and so forth. But to me, and I'll say generic, it's, the language is pretty minimal, which I think is good. And from the standpoint that shall remain on the property and the responsibility of the subdivider or successors in interest of the lands being subdivided. And then it says, no subdivision shall be approved until and unless legal covenants running with the land sufficient to ensure that the county will not need to assume maintenance responsibilities for such improvements. So that was approved, predicated upon that language. And it says shall remain on the property.
So maybe it's between them and their lawyer.
I believe that it might be, sounds like a civil issue.
I'm good with that. But
So where are we at with it?
So I think we're in a really good place.
Okay.
I think,
Oh.
we've got our ADU ordinance that I will draft, and then we're gonna be amending our subdivision ordinance. I guess the suggestion is to increase the minimum lot size to 2 acres.
Well, the board.
I'm comfortable with that, yes.
Susan?
All right. And then I will research whether there's a new CSR. I know that we also previously discussed defining what a dwelling is, and that came up again today, so I had and I couldn't find it today, but I did have a previously.
Now that, while she's looking at that new law that she presented us with states that the ADU.
Does anyone want to see it? I have
I
another,
think it says
there's a
could be-
copy over there and then there's another.
No more than a minimum, or no more than 1,000 square feet, or
Or-
half of whatever the other unit is.
That's part of the new law.
Yeah, the family.
And it says whichever is larger. So if an apartment house was built there and it's 5,000 square feet, then it could be.
But it's a single family residence is what
Right.
it says, which is not an apartment building. But I mean, I guess that's something to consider. If you have a larger minimum lot size, then somebody could build a much larger home, which would lead to a much larger ADU.
Right, that's.
Which I guess is not many, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And it's on a foundation and then
It
basically.
has
it's
to be on a
permanent structure.
foundation. Mhm. Yep.
So. And do we just use the term, I don't know how many cans of worms we open by doing this, but do we just use the term single residential dwelling?
For a single family residence, I don't know, like
Well,
that's what I
of
was
course, to
trying
me, a
find
single
with
family
that.
residence, would that include an 8 one-bedroom apartment structure. This is a single family in each unit.
No, that would be an 8-family residence.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Single family is
Single family.
one family in that.
So what we would
Residence.
say is then, and I'm not trying to argue, I just want to
No,
make
no, I
sure.
understand.
Then we won't allow somebody to build an apartment in the county.
I just get very uncomfortable when we start talking about what we are and are not allowing people to do with their land when we don't have zoning.
Right.
Right.
But aren't we telling them that when we say it's a single family dwelling?
Well, that's allowed by Iowa code. We're gonna be
Okay.
talking about, you know, you can, and in our subdivision ordinance, we talk about dwellings per lot size. I believe that it's in our subdivision ordinance. And so I don't think that we're gonna be doing anything that's different than what we have. We talk about it.
I don't know, I have to look and see. Block.
We have a minimum lot size. I don't think we have a minimum.
We don't have a dwelling per lot
Dwelling is not, I don't know. Well,
defined, it's not
I
defined.
don't know if it's covered.
Defines.
Oh, yeah, but I think Washington's ordinance does, which makes me think that.
Okay.
Oh, do we want to, I was gonna ask a question, do we want to establish a fee? Says we can. The board of supervisors shall from time to time establish by resolution fees for the review of plats and minor subdivisions. No plat for any subdivision, re-subdivision, or minor subdivision shall be considered filed with the board of supervisors unless and until said plat is accompanied by the fee established by the resolution of the board and as required by this ordinance. Which goes back, maybe that might help. I don't know, would that help the question you had earlier? When you were talking heavy about they wait 6 months and or would it make any difference?
Well, no, because if it's already a parcel, then they don't have to do they don't have to approach us because they've already got their parcel.
Oh, that's right. That was the other change to the subdivision.
Yeah, we have the minimum lot size. But we don't say anything about dwellings per lot.
We can add that.
That I can order.
Now, in a major subdivision, it does say that no building shall commence on any lot, nor shall any structure be moved onto any lot, parcel, or tract, where a subdivision is required by this ordinance unless and until a final plat such subdivision has been approved and recorded in accordance with this ordinance, and until the improvements required by this ordinance have been installed.
But again, it doesn't limit how many dwellings.
No, you're right, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is in this instance out here, he really can't place anything out here if that's where it ends up being the issue because none of those improvements have been installed.
So technically, those lots don't exist yet,
Right.
even though they're on a plat, but they don't.
Yeah.
They have not been approved by the board because the improvements have not been constructed.
Our application does require a fee. I don't know
Okay.
if that was established via resolution previously, and if that's something that you want to revisit, we can.
Yeah, so you.
Change.
For a subdivision application.
Isn't that ours, this land division application, these requirements? Or is this something that I made?
Well, if you're required, I haven't, well, I've only, for a major subdivision, I think we've only had one and then he never completed.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never seen this piece of paper before.
well, great. Let's get it going then. Our subdivision ordinance does say that there is a fee that as required by this ordinance. So I guess I'm
Yes.
assuming that there is a fee that was established via resolution previously.
As far as I know, it never has.
Okay.
Or if it has, nobody ever told me about it.
It says it's part of this application. Procedures and submission requirements for plats. The fee is required by this ordinance.
Somewhere in there, it says the board of supervisors may determine a fee and review it from time to time.
Via resolution.
Yeah, and I don't know if
So
they've ever
developed a
done that.
resolution.
Hey, Brad.
Oh,
As far far as I know, they never have.
I know you don't.
So,
I don't want them.
That's why I hollered at you. Hey,
Come on.
are you okay if we put in our subdivision ordinance that, it's required, to do the 911 signage?
Sure.
For ADUs,
Oh, the alternative or whatever the little.
mhm.
accessory dwelling units.
Yeah,
That's a topic.
okay. I was gonna do it anyway, but I want to make it feel good.
Well, I'll check and see if there's a resolution, or maybe Abby can help me figure out if there's a resolution establishing a fee structure for applications. If Wayne doesn't know about it, I'm guessing that we
Well, I've
don't.
only been here 4 years, so. They have, that has not happened in my time, and Mark Bell never said anything about it, so.
So maybe you're just not
That-
enforcing it.
That, well, Mark, if there was money coming in, Mark would have been on top of it. So that means for the last 15 years at least, we have not collected fees.
So ADU ordinance and then subdivision ordinance changes as discussed, CSR minimum lot size of 2 acres. We're gonna define dwelling and then we'll maybe require 1 dwelling per lot if allowed, and I'll double check that. And then if a land split, I guess, doesn't trigger our subdivision, we're gonna be requiring that people get a survey and then write a new parcel. Is that what
That's
we're?
fine anyways.
It is? I thought we were just talking that if
Yes.
Say
there's,
it again,
No, we're
sorry.
talking about combining the part, if the subdivision ordinance is not triggered due
it's not
to
triggered.
being acquired by an adjoining
Yeah.
landowner, the
Subject
two
to an
parcels need to be
exception.
split.
2 parcels need to be
Combined.
combined.
And I'm sure the board knows this, but I'll just bring it up because I just have to think about it. And I know Dwayne knows it, and I'm sure she knows it. We're also subject to, if they're within this 2 mile zones of the cities, to their subdivision ordinances as well.
If they
Yes.
choose,
Yeah.
if they choose. That's usually my first say, okay, you're within 2 miles of the city, approach them first, and if they want anything to do with it, then we're out.
Yeah, okay. So I guess that is, since we're talking about the subdivision ordinance, and I know that this came up previously. Right now, our ordinance says you need to get approval from the city before you bring it to the Board of Supervisors, and there it says that you need to get approval by the Board of Supervisors before you bring it to the city. So I'm wondering if we want to include something in the subdivision ordinance, kind of waiving the review if it meets the city standards, or if you want to review it. I just don't know how you'd like to go about doing that. Because they do have, I don't know if that's something that you want to consider, I guess.
If the city wishes to annex it, then we're pretty well out of the loop. If the city doesn't wish to annex, then we need to review it, but
The one that I'm most recently familiar with, which several years ago, was when Van Ritz wanted to divide up their Jack's property into 3. What would have ultimately been 3 parcels.
Yeah.
Vedic City they didn't come out and say they were opposed to it, but they would never take the issue up. And so he just ended up splitting it one time.
didn't they just annex some off over north of Walton Road?
The Walton Road, they might have that. There's a subdivision out
Yeah,
there.
they just
See, is
annexed
that-
3 lots
Was
off
that
of
the one
there.
that was built by,
Howard?
It hard.
Harvey?
Ted Harvey, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they annexed that in or
Yeah,
not.
and then the grain elevator also, that was in the county and he split that off, but the city annexed that as well, where they demoed.
Well,
That
maybe
way,
we
I
don't want to
think.
address that now,
But yeah, that was county now.
Oh, they annexed it over the drainage field?
I think so.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, they were
North
working on that.
Campus Fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because he talked to me
Well,
about it.
and we moved the street sign on North B Street further out to accommodate, is that North Campus Village?
Mhm.
There on the left side of the road, or on the west side of the road.
Mhm.
not to say accommodate, but I mean, because
It
it's.
remove confusion on the
Yeah.
addressing.
Yeah,
So, sorry, one question. If there is no resolution establishing a fee structure for the application, or even if there is, what do you propose the fee should be for a subdivision application?
you got something in mind.
$1,000.
Well, I was looking at yours and I would think a simple split should be 0. Because if it's a simple split, I just look at them. I pull up the assessor's website, kind of look at the sale history, I've got 15 minutes into it.
Okay.
A minor subdivision, maybe $50. A major subdivision, those can run into time.
Yeah.
I was thinking minimum 500.
Well, probably.
Okay.
And then, and then also, there's language in there that they're responsible to pay us for inspection and construction, so that's already covered.
And then do we want to have a permitting fee for our ADU ordinance as well? Or kind of just a review of any application? I don't know what that would really entail, since they're not going to be splitting any land, but just that.
For our end, my end of it, it would be just like a simple split. It'd almost be nothing, just be checking to make sure there's not one already there.
So who would be determining then that the ADU complies with the size? The minimum sizing, like that would be more like, maximum.
That'd be
Size.
assessor auditor.
Oh, you mean the size of the physical size of the structure?
Yeah, assessor?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and then Jerry'd be responsible for taking care of the sanitary end of it.
The outflow.
Again, maybe if there was some kind of a permit fee, well, at least then, I would know that there's one going on out there. I mean, how will I know?
Well, I was just gonna ask the question, of course, Dwayne and use the rest of them, and Elizabeth might be able to answer this question, because I don't know if we can acquire it or not. But if we have a permit process regarding the ADU, not to be charged for it, but just that, like we have a driveway permit, so they have to apply for a permit. So
And there's a cost to that.
Huh?
There's a cost to the driveway permit.
Well, right,
Yeah.
but it's like, what, $10 or something?
Something, yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is that when they come in and apply for the permit for the ADU, do we want them to have already approached the county health department, the sanitarian, and that we have a permit attached to their, you see what I'm saying? In other words, a permit.
our ordinance requires a permit to install, construct, repair, reconstruct, extend, or alter a disposal system.
Right.
It's gotta be issued by you, and it will be issued after the required fee as set by the Jefferson County Board of Health is received.
Right.
So I don't know what fee they've established, but that permit has to be issued by you after you get the fee. So if we'd like, and I guess I'm assuming that if there's an ADU, they would have to install, construct, reconstruct, repair, extend, or alter a disposal system. Is that accurate?
I would say so, but again, will they know that? Or how will they know that? And how will I know that they are doing their ATU?
Well, I guess when we get the permit for the building, maybe we could require that they've already received the permit.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
where I was
Yeah.
going with that, was that they can't be issued a permit by Dwayne to do that without them providing him the permit that, what do I call it? Well,
From health officer.
yeah,
Okay,
where they established and paid the fee, right? Because you won't issue a permit till they pay the fee, right?
No, yeah, right.
what is that fee, do you know?
New construction, $500. Alteration is 200.
Okay.
So what we're suggesting is that when they come to you, that just like kind of a driveway permit, they have to get a permit to do an ADU. But in that request, they have to provide you a permit And he won't issue one until the fee's paid, so a permit that they've already been to him about
Mhm.
the waste disposal.
And then something from the assessor, I guess, that would, indicate that it meets the size
Okay.
requirements.
And if they come to you first and you say, well, I can't do anything until you have a permit from.
Letter, maybe?
Right.
Go see Jerry and go see Whammy.
Okay. To Steve about what he thinks would be appropriate to provide. Okay. So then what do you think the cost should be for you just double checking that all of those things are there?
$25.
Okay.
It shouldn't be. Shouldn't be a big thing, it's not like a driveway permit, we've got to make at least 2 trips out for.
Well, maybe let's establish that via resolution. It's easier to change than if you just discover that it's gonna take more time.
It gets to be onerous or a chore, yeah.
Okay, so I created so much work for myself here. So we've got a resolution for fees for a subdivision, a resolution for the fees for building permitting process for the ADUs, the ADU ordinance, and then the changes to the subdivision ordinance.
And what do you want to do, just was the last thing. Because Elizabeth's gonna have a birthday that she's been here so long. No. What do you wanted to, how do you want to define, you want a single dwelling residence, is that what you want?
We can define dwelling. We can limit the number of dwellings per lot.
Okay, so you had to.
Define dwelling as a single family residence. I mean, unless that we need additional definitions for that, but I will double check and see what's already in the state law as defined and then just use that language and that
Okay.
people can reference.
And I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you have to research it. I don't believe that we can grant a variance. I know the city has policies where they can grant variances under certain certain criteria, but they have a zoning ordinance. Right, and so that makes a difference. Or am I wrong?
I mean, we allow for variances in our subdivision ordinance. Are you saying that you don't think that that's lawful and we should remove it?
No, I'm asking if it is. And if it is, then, there might be something that comes up that. But I'm just afraid that if we start granting variances, that once we grant a variance for a situation, then that situation no longer becomes subject to the ordinance as it's written. But sometimes circumstances do exist.
Yeah.
That public hearing is on. Right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, that's it. Only 3 in this particular.
Well, we'll need 3 for a new ordinance and then for the amended subdivision ordinance. Resolutions.
So we just do them all on the same day. At 9:00 at 9:15.
Boom, boom, boom.
It seems threatening you.
I think on election day would be a great time.
I won't be available.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the week. Okay. Any other concerns or questions or?
Is that everything we had on the agenda? Would you tell me if it wasn't, as long as you've already been here? Hey, I appreciate everybody. I really do. Thank you. There was nobody online, but I'll thank anybody that was anyway.